Okay guys, so first things first, go ahead, create a folder on your desktop. I've called mine tutorial, and within that folder I've created two folders over here. The OBJ, which is going to contain the static pose state of our model, and then the collider, which is basically going to be our animation. Okay, so once you've done that, open up DAZ. I'm using DAZ Studio 4.10 Pro. I'm going to go to Actors, Wardrobes and Props, and I'm basically going to load in the Genesis 3 male. Now by default, I'm not sure if he comes installed with DAZ. If he doesn't, you'll have to open up the DAZ install manager and basically download the Genesis 3 male starter essentials kit, and that is free, by the way. Okay, so once you've got your character over here, in my tutorial you'll see that he's posed with his arms on his side, but before we pose him, we want to go to pose and animate, and over here by animate light, we want to make sure here by frame 0 he's in the T-pose state. Then I'll move the slider to 1, and now we can go ahead and pose him. So I'm using the universal tool over here, gizmo, and I'm basically going to bring his arms down to his side like this, because this is how he was in the tutorial. Okay, and then I'm going to select his hands as well, go to parameters, pose controls, and we can say a little bit of a grasp. Now you guys can push this a little bit further. You can add some asymmetry to the fingers as well, even tilt his head. That's completely up to you, but I am trying to replicate the exact same pose that's in the tutorial. So once you're done with this, you want to go to Scene, go to Genesis 3 male, right click on that, say expand, expand all, and we're going to select everything here. So we're selecting all the bone joints. And now here on our animate light, we'll see if I go to frame 0, it's T-pose, frame 1 is the pose state. So we are basically done right now. So I'm going to go ahead, first thing I'm going to do is file, export. I'm going to export out our static mesh of our pose state. I'll just say male toot, click on save. Here's my settings. You guys can pause and see everything that I've got ticked. My scale is on 100%. And here's everything that I have selected. I'm going to click on accept, let that save out. And now for the collider, it's important that I bring this back to 0. I've noticed that if I leave that on the pose state and export it out, it just looks really weird within Marvelous Designer. The anatomy gets a bit messed up. So I'm going to bring that back to 0. Go to file, export, go to collider, male toot, click on save. I'm going to go show individual settings, tick animation, tick include transformations, and tick include morphs. Click on accept. It's going to save out my collider, and we are good to go. If you want to, you guys could file, save this as a scene in case you want to come back here and maybe make adjustments to your pose. Maybe you're not happy with this pose and you want something different, you guys can do that. And yeah, so we're done. So let's go to Marvelous Designer 7. I'm going to go to file, import open collider. I'm already in my collider folder, so import that .dae file. I want to load it as an avatar, auto scale, and everything else can remain default. I'm going to click on OK. It's going to load in the model with the materials and the animation. And close this. We won't be using bounding volumes and arrangement points. And there we go. Now if I go to animation and I click on play, you'll see that it goes from the T-pose to the pose state. So that's really important, because later on we're going to build our garment on the T-pose, and then we're going to click on this record button and we'll record it into the pose state and continue working on our garment from there. Okay, so everything's set up and ready to go. If you guys wanted to, you could file, save this as a project right now at the beginning, and we'll get started after this. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to go to the polygon tool, and I'm just going to draw out, one basically half of the pattern, and then I'm going to unfold it to create the rest of it. So I'm going to start by basically drawing out the strap over here, and then basically to constrain this line, you can say I can move it around freely, but if I hold shift, it gets constrained to these different lines, these angles that you see over here. So just holding down shift and left click, and I'm going to hold down shift here as well. Just drag it up till there and connect that. Now I am actually going to, I'm going to go to the edit pattern, select this line, hold down shift. Actually, first click to drag out, then hold down shift, so it constrains it. And I just want to move this out just a little bit more, and move that up a little bit as well. Over there should be fine. Okay, and now obviously depending on the proportions of your character, you'll have to adjust it, but just make sure that this is just a little bit above the shoulder region and here a little bit below the armpit as well. Then I'm going to select this middle line and I'm going to right click and go to unfold, and that's going to create the other side. Actually wait, undo that. I forgot that I need to use the edit curvature just to add some curvature here before we even do that. Okay, so add some curvature over there. Now go ahead, select that line, unfold. Now the first thing I'm going to do is this bottom point over here, I'm going to select it and delete it, and I'm going to select this point and delete it as well. Then I'm going to go back to edit curvature and I'll just drag this down till about there. Now the further down this goes, the bigger this round, you're going to see this I'm getting tangled up in my words, but you'll see that this region over here by the neck, you're going to have a bigger round neck. So if you wanted a V neck, you could actually keep it in that previous shape. Okay, so I'm going to select my pattern. I'm going to say Control C, Control V, and it will paste a copy. Now also make sure that you are in the textured surface mode, and that's important because you'll see there's actually two different colors on this pattern. You'll see a lighter gray and a darker gray, and this darker gray is actually the normal over here. So I'm going to move this back, and the reason why I'm showing you that is if I try to sew these together, the normal would be, well, this darker region would be on the outside. So I actually want to flip horizontally, and that's going to basically invert my normal, so it's on the inside of that pattern. Okay, then go to your edit, your segment sewing, sew these two together, that together, that together, and this together. And now if you click on simulation, you've got a really tight tank top on this guy. But this is what we want. Alright, it's a start. And if you see some of the character poking through over here, that's actually related to the particle distance. So you'll see if I actually increase this particle distance to something like 10, just to show you, because we're not going to be working on 10 right now. We're going to put it back on 20 for the sake of performance, but there we go. So that those intersections that you saw there are now gone. And this is how you also increase the amount of detail in your garment. So I'm going to put that back on 20. Like I said, for the sake of performance. And I probably should have mentioned this in the beginning. This gizmo over here, you want to go to preferences, gizmos, and local coordinate. That's what I'm using. It's a more standardized version that's just a little bit more easier to use. Okay, so we have the base of this t-shirt ready, and now we're going to be creating the sleeves. Okay, actually before I do the sleeves, I'm just going to adjust this pattern just a little bit more. We'll do the other side. So I'm holding down shift. I'm in the edit pattern and I'm just selecting those points, and I'm just going to move this a little bit more to the right. Now I'm not being 100% accurate and paying attention to these numbers because they don't matter to me right now. Just adjusting the shape there a little bit, and yeah, I think that's fine. Okay, so let's create the sleeve. Actually, let me simulate that so it looks a bit better. Let's create the sleeve. So you want to go to the rectangle tool, and you want to go ahead and draw out a shape like this. Then you want to go to edit curvature. Let's add some curvature to the top. You want to go to the add point, right click on that line and go to uniform split. So that's going to put a point right in the center of this line. And maybe this is a little bit too long, so I'll just bring it up a little bit. You want to bring in, okay, actually wait, I'm going to sew this right now before I adjust the shape, just to show you what will happen if I don't bring these lines in. And it can be intentional if you go in for a certain sleeve pattern, but okay, anyway, so this is the basic sleeve shape. go into your 3D viewport, select that shape, and let's rotate it and move it over here. So what I'm basically doing here is this curve section, I'm going to be sewing it on this entire section of the garment, and then I'm going to sew this side and this side together so that it folds and basically wraps around the arm. Okay, so let's do that. Let's start sewing. Okay, so go ahead to the free sewing, this icon over here, and I'm going to sew this onto this area over here. Okay, so if you see it like that, I actually need to rotate this like this. Now the normal is going to be on the outside, so I'll just right click and say flip normal, and that'll fix that. Now this sewing over here, that is, let me see, that's fine. And then I'm going to sew this onto this. There we go. And now if I click on simulate, you can see it sewed that onto that region. And now I need to go to my segment sewing and just sew this together so that this closes over here. And there we go. Now I'm actually going to increase my particle distance a little bit. If you guys PCs can handle this, cool. But you can still stick at 20. It's a little bit annoying to see a little bit of the character poking through the garment, so I just put mine on 15. Okay, so we've got one sleeve. Oh, and something that I'm noticing right now, you see this back shape over here? I'm actually going to go to my edit curvature, and I'm going to bring this up till about there. Click on simulate, because I don't want the back to go as low as the front. And then now we need to create a sleeve for the other side as well. So Control C, Control V. And okay, it's time to sew on this side. So let me actually bring that into the correct position first. You can see it's just dangling in the air. So I'm just moving it into position here. Okay, and let's sew. So I'm going to sew this into this. Make sure I'm sewing the correct side, and then this onto this area over here. And these two are already sewed together, so it will just apply that sleeve on there automatically for me. I can just pull that out, and I can always just pull down the t-shirt a little bit here in the front. Alright. Okay, so if you guys are making a really tight t-shirt, this would be a good base that you guys could continue with. But we're going for baggy, right? We want a baggy t-shirt, so you'll see that once I start making this baggy, this shape is actually going to matter. And you'll see that when I actually start adjusting the shape, you're going to get, it's just going to basically hang here a lot differently. But anyway, we want to make this baggy. So if you wanted to make this baggy, you could select all of this, click on the center point, hold down shift, and make the pattern bigger. But I'm going to be using a feature here in Marvelous Designer called shrinkage width. So I held down shift and I selected my entire pattern, or you can just hold on the left mouse button and draw out a rectangle to select everything. But here, this feature called shrinkage width, if you increase this value, it basically adds more fabric on top of this fabric. So it makes it like, it's kind of like increasing the size of the pattern. So you'll see that it just adds more fabric onto the garment, and vice versa. If you decrease that, it decreases the amount of fabric and it makes it a lot more tighter. So you'll see I'm going to put this on 120 and I'm going to click enter, and you saw automatically that it just added a bit more fabric onto our garment over there. But now another thing I'm going to do over here with the sleeves, I'm selecting both sleeves. I'm going to make them a little bit longer. And by making it longer, it's going to make the sleeve a little bit bigger. If you made the width shorter, you'd make the sleeve a little bit more tighter. So that's just adding more width onto the sleeves. Okay, so we could even go further and basically bump up the shrinkage width value. So we could go all the way to 130. You can see it's starting to make it even a little bit more baggy. Okay. Now you can see that the sleeves are actually starting to hang a lot more, and this is going to be a lot more prevalent with the pose that I have for this character. So if I go to animation and I click on record, it's basically going to simulate the garment into that posed state. And this is exactly where I'm going to continue now. I'm going to continue from this pose state, and this is what I wanted to show you guys, right? So let me go back to my simulation. You see how these sleeves are basically poking out? It's basically because of this pattern. Now if I didn't want these sleeves to poke out as much as this, all you have to do is select these bottom points and bring them in. So you do that for both sides. I'll select there, and then I'll click on simulate, and you'll see that it either makes it like really tight, so that's maybe way too much. I went in maybe way too much over there because I still want it to hang. It's just I don't want it poking out like so much. And then from here I can probably select both of these and increase the width even a little bit more. Right, and as you can see, slowly we're starting to get our shape. Now to prevent any future issues from happening with our sleeves intersecting with this part of the garment, just select both of these sleeves and put on a new layer. So layers is basically going to help prevent those errors from occurring. So if you wanted one garment to be like above another piece of the garment or underneath it, you would adjust the layer number. So these are currently on 0, so I want this to be on top, because if I leave that on 0, there could be some intersection issues later on. But if I put that on 1, it's going to basically treat it as though these sleeves are on top of this part of the part of the garment. I'm going to click on simulate, and just pull in and adjusting some of our garment over here. And yeah, we can continue from there. Okay, so the thing about this pose is, you'll see if I hide the garment, there really is no gap over here for this garment to pass through, so it tends to intersect with the avatar, and that can cause some simulation issues. But one way to get past that, to make your life a little bit easier, if you go to scene and you go and find your avatar, you can see mine is named Genesis 3 male, and you'll see something here called skin offset. So that's going to offset the garment from the skin. If I put that on something like 1 and click on simulate, it tends to help a little bit as it pushes it away from the skin a little bit more. I can still see some issues over here on the back. I'm just going to bring that sleeve out. Oops, that was actually not a good idea. I'll simulate that, select the back piece, and then simulate that back on. So you can see over here, actually let me freeze this sleeve. If you're working with a pose like this, it can be a little bit of a pain, especially if you haven't got enough leeway for the garment. But that skin offset can help a little bit. to reduce some of these errors. Otherwise, you're gonna have to work with it and then adjust some of it further. Like I usually adjust that in ZBrush. And you can also go back there and you can increase this kinetic friction. Now I'm not 100% sure what it does, but I've noticed that by increasing the skin and this kinetic friction coefficient, it just helps make the simulation a little bit smoother, especially on poses where there's not that much space available and where the garment seems to intersect with the avatar. Okay, so while I'm looking at the garment now, these sleeves, I'm still not 100% happy with the shape. So I'm going to go ahead and select this pattern, make it a little bit longer. Alright, and I'm going to click on simulate. You can see it was basically curving and it was taking too much of the shape of the shoulder over here. So I did that just to change the shape up a little bit. And if I don't want this to stick out so much, just select these points, move them in a bit, do the same for the other side. Move that in a little bit more. Alright, and that's going to bring that a little bit more in, and you can see it's not hugging the shoulder as much as it did just now. Okay, so that's how I altered that shape. And then another thing I want to change is, if you want a big round collar area like this, you can leave it like that, but I'm actually going to reduce the size of that. So to do that, make sure you've got edit pattern selected, select these points and basically just move them in. Select that point as well and move it in. You'll see now when I click on simulate, it basically reduced that distance, and for me personally this looks a little bit better. As you can see, we're getting there. Just some more stuff that we need to do to our garment. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make this even more baggy. So I'm going to select everything and increase that shrinkage weft. Put that on 140. This time I'm actually going to add to the shrinkage warp as well. So I'm going to put 110 on there. Click enter, click simulate, and there we go. So this shrinkage warp, let's see if I go back to 100, it's going to make it shorter. So by adding on to the shrinkage warp as well, it makes the t-shirt a little bit more longer, and I think it feels like it adds more fabric onto the garment. So now this is really starting to look like a baggy t-shirt. As you can see, it's quite big. You've got these big sleeves and the t-shirt's hanging quite low as well. And now something that I'm going to play around with, if I go to my fabric, let's play around with one of the presets over here, because now it's on default. So I'm going to go ahead, click on that drop down arrow, and let's select a realistic lightweight nylon. And that one, this particular fabric has a lot of really nice folds on it. So if you were going for a t-shirt that's got lots of folds, you could use this. Or you can use something that's got folds on it but isn't as crazy as the lightweight nylon, and that is D-leather. I'm always having to adjust stuff here by the sleeves. Having to pull the t-shirt down. It's just constant adjustment. Now you see, like areas like this where it's constantly intersecting with the actual avatar, stuff like that, I usually just pull it out and adjust that in ZBrush. Alright, but let's continue. Okay, so I feel like the back just looks a little bit uninteresting, So I'm going to go ahead, select this back pattern. I'm actually going to decrease the shrinkage width. I'm going to put it on 120. So that is going to reduce the amount of fabric that was added on here, make it a little bit more tighter. Press enter and then click simulate. But now I just feel like there's a little bit better shape over there. Maybe we can put that on 125. It's not too tight. Okay, so it doesn't look as puffy as it did previously. Okay, cool. So I'm going to add another element to the design over here. I'm going to select the add point, and I'm going to add a point over there, and I'm going to add one on this side as well. And I'm going to select these points, actually bring them up, hold down shift, make sure I'm pressing shift on both points, bring them up till about there. Then select these bottom ones, move them in, and do the same this side. And now you can see what it's doing, right? It's creating like a cut in the fabric. Then I would do that for both sides. So I'm actually eyeballing that. If I didn't want to eyeball it, I could use an internal line. Just draw a line across so that I get it in the exact same spot as that other dot that you guys see there. And now I can add a point over there. It would have been nice if I had symmetry on, and you can do symmetry, by the way. And now I can bring, so that was on 77.2, 77.4, no 100% exact, but you can see that it adds, oops, I need to remove the sewing over there. So what I'm actually going to have to do here is I'm going to have to go to edit sewing, delete the sewing for both sides, then go to free sew, so that there I'm just sewing up until that point, so that the bottom piece is basically open. So now if I click on simulate, here we go. So you've got like this triangular cutout in the t-shirt, which like adds to the design. Maybe that's something you want. It's completely up to you guys, or you can just revert back to the regular t-shirt. Okay, so there's some more that I want to add on here as well. I'm actually going to take an internal line, and I'm going to draw a line from here to here. Press enter, and then a line from here to here. Press enter, select that internal line, right click and say cut and sew. So what that did is it basically, this is its own piece now. So if I went to fabric and I said copy and I changed the color to something like black. By the way, I don't know why my preset isn't on. I'm going to put that on de-leather. Come over here, de-leather. You see I just added some interest here to the bottom of the garment, some separation. Okay, and then you can also do the same with the sleeves. So select those lines. Now we're going to right click, say offset as internal line, just create an offset of that line. I'm going to put mine on 25, click OK. Maybe that's too high. I'll say 15 actually. And right click, say cut and sew. Alright, so it separates that. It makes it its own piece. Okay. And if I wanted to with thickness, now I honestly never export thickness out of Marvelous Designer. I do that in ZBrush. But if I wanted to see stuff with thickness in here as a reference for what I could do in ZBrush, I could select these and add some thickness onto it. So maybe 2, and I want to change this to thick just to see what it looks like. Now you can see there's some thickness there on that sleeve. I can do the same for the bottom as well. Put that on 2. Now there's some added thickness down there, and it's just a reference because in ZBrush I would go to Z modeler, I would Q mesh and Q mesh that out just to add thickness. But this is a good way to reference and get an idea of what you could add. Now I'm actually going to change the color of this t-shirt to a darker gray, and maybe these parts could be, let me select these pieces, go to fabric and select the bottom fabric. Now you see that you can have different colors like that. Now that's not what I want. Maybe just a little bit of a darker gray. Okay, so we're getting somewhere with our baggy t-shirt. These are just additional details that you can add on. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, so there's still some more detail we can add. We're gonna add some detail here by the collar area. So I'm gonna draw out a rectangle like this. Okay, and then I'm going to Control C, Control V and make this one a little bit shorter. Right click, flip horizontally, and this is going to be at the back. We got our front piece here. Make sure I'm moving that down. Okay, then go to segment sewing, sew this onto this onto this here, and this over here, and click simulate. And just to make sure there's no intersection issues or nothing that's going to give me a headache, I'm going to put this on layer 1 because the t-shirt is on layer 0, so this will be on top. And I'm going to change this to that darker color. And this back over here, you can see it's poking out too much, so I'm going to make it shorter so it pulls it a little bit tighter there. And then you've got some folds over here as well. If that was too much, I could just go into ZBrush, use the smooth brush to get rid of it. Same thing with how this is poking out here. I could just use the move brush and ZBrush to push it back. Because sometimes there's stuff in Marvelous Designer that's a little bit of a headache to shape and get right. I feel like MD gives you a good start, but in ZBrush is where you can do a lot more adjustments as well to your garment. So you can see it's looking a lot better now with that collar on. And they've added a new feature in Marvelous Designer 7 called top stitching. So you can basically add stitching onto your garment as geometry. So when you export this garment out as an OBJ, you'll even be exporting out the geometry. So to do that, I'm going to go to segment top stitch, and I want stitching to be, let's see, all over here, right? So segment top stitching, and I'm going to select all of these. You'll see the line turns purple, and if I zoom in right now, you can see there's some small stitches on there. So if I wanted to, I could actually have that small detail on my garment. I could have all of these small stitches. So maybe this is too much. And you see sometimes when stitches overlap like this, it's best to use free top stitch and go around the whole pattern. It actually might be a lot quicker. So maybe I'm not going to put stitches all over the garment, so I'm actually going to undo that. And let's maybe just have some stitching by the collar area. So I'll go free stitching. I'll select the collar, front and the back. Oh. And you can see some stitching. I'd like some stitching over here as well by the sleeves. over there. There's some stitching there. Obviously, if you wanted this to be a lot more accurate, you'd go and reference some t-shirts and see exactly where they've got their stitching. But I'm just showing you this feature. And then if you wanted to change the actual stitching here on the right, you can see this popped up. If I click on default top stitch, I can change a lot of stuff here. We've got a pick stitch that you see over there. You can change it to zigzag. So just let that load. You can change it to zigzag and you get a completely different stitch now, and they've got all these presets like the overlock, which is also pretty nice stitching. You can see it applies it to everything, and then you can offset that, you can change the length, you can play around with those sliders, but I thought I'll just show you that quickly. We can even change the color of our stitching. So if we wanted that black, here we go. And again, when you export this out, it actually exports out the stitching for you. Maybe I'm going to free sew some stitching on here as well, here at the bottom. But again, I'm just doing this without really like truly referencing a t-shirt to accurately place that stitching, but you can do that if you want to. But I thought I'll just show you this feature because I thought it's really cool. Right, and I'm still working on a particle distance of 20. Actually, I think these are on 15, so I can bring all of this down to 10 now. But if I was going to export this out of Marvelous Design, I'd bring it all the way down to 5 to see it properly. So I bring that down to 10, click on simulate. And you can see the stitching is usually visible when you're not simulating. You see when I click on simulation, it basically disappears. So you see that while I'm not simulating that. But we've got a baggy t-shirt. We've added some sleeves on here with some thickness only for referencing within the program. Should have probably added some thickness here as well as reference, and I can do that. Select those two, we'll put that on 2 just to see what it looks like. We added these bad boys here at the bottom. Yeah. And I'm actually going to increase the lightness, bring this up a little bit so it's not too dark. Maybe that's top stitching, but you know what, I could probably stay in here all day adjusting this stuff, and I'm not going to do that because in this tutorial, I think this tutorial's already long enough. And I'll just select these, default top stitch. I think I'll leave it on that. Okay, so we've got a baggy t-shirt. We adjusted the shape a little bit, added some more detail onto the garment to bring it to a completion. And there's one more thing we need to add onto this garment. Actually, wait, before I get to the final part, you can see over here right at the end, I just felt like I wanted to make the sleeves even a little bit longer, so I just selected that and brought it down a little bit to make these sleeves more baggy. And this top stitching over here, I actually don't like it, so I'm going to delete that. And the other ones I can leave on. So yeah, okay, so it's time to add our final part onto the t-shirt, and I think we are done. Okay, so I'm just going to add a little bit of texture to this t-shirt to see how it would look, and I'm actually going to be using my textile patterns. I've actually got 60 of these on my gum roll. It's 4K textures that are 100% tileable, and they're all fabric related. So I'm going to actually use this fabric 4. So I'm going to go to my default fabric, which is applied to the t-shirt, and go to texture, click on those 4 dots, and let's go to fabric 4 and load in the base color. Okay, so it's just giving me a general idea of how it would look. And then if I want to, on top of this, I can, hold on, I'm actually going to change this. Let me look for something that's a little bit lighter. You know what, I might go for, oh, so many to choose from. Alright, I'm gonna go to fabric 14. Let me see how that one looks. That one's got more stripes on it. You see, this is the problem. I don't know what I want to choose over here. And I would honestly not, like, if I was gonna render stuff out, I mean, you can't even really render in Marvelous. This just gives me a general idea of what it might look like with some texture on it. Okay, so I'm gonna stick with that one. Okay, and then maybe this over here, we'll just make this darker for now. Okay, and then the cherry on top of the cake is maybe to add a design onto our t-shirt. So I'm gonna go to a graphic 2D pattern, and let me go to my desktop over here, and I'm gonna load in the way. So I'm gonna load in the red knuckle tribe. I want to select this front garment. It's gonna go ahead. Okay, that should be fine. Click on OK. Got my character over there, so you'll see if I click away. And I can go ahead to transform graphic. I can select that. I can do a uniform scale. And maybe it's just over there in the corner on our t-shirt. There we go. So I know that was silly, guys, but that's how you add graphics on here as well. 2D graphics if you want to see what they would look like on your t-shirt. But now you are equipped with the knowledge to basically draft a baggy t-shirt pattern. The pattern's actually super simple. This tutorial took a lot of time because there was just a lot of adjustments, like playing around with the shrinkage warp and weft and moving stuff away from the body. And I'm probably still going to continue doing that just to get a final shape that I'm 100% happy with. But now at least you know how to go about doing this, so you can create your own baggy t-shirts. Oh, and by the way, that top stitching, you can see I changed it. I actually changed that to the pick stitch. I just felt that looked a little bit better. But yeah, this top stitching is actually really nice to have, and the fact that they can be exported out is very cool. So from here I would actually select everything and put it on 5, bring it all the way down to 5 and see how that looks. And yeah, we are officially done. We have created our baggy t-shirt. I hope you learned some useful tips and tricks from this, guys. I enjoyed creating that. And yeah, I know this took quite a while to do, even though it's something as simple as a t-shirt, but I covered quite a few techniques and new features in Marvelous Design as well. So go ahead, create some t-shirts for your characters. You even saw how it started off as a tank top and as a tight t-shirt and as a baggy t-shirt. So it's basically 3 in 1. If you wanted to create a tank top, you know how to do that, or a tight t-shirt or a baggy t-shirt. Alright, so as always, thank you for watching my tutorial, guys, and stay tuned for some more tutorials, and goodbye. I have now taught you the way to make baggy t-shirts. Okay, see you guys, bye. Okay, wait guys, my bad. That actually wasn't me signing off. One more thing, you can see over here I've actually got the particle distance on 5, and what I did was I actually selected this front and the back, and under the properties I put it on lightweight nylon, just to get a little bit more wrinkles and folds. You can see for the back as well, just gives you some nice, even some micro wrinkles and folds over there, which I think look really nice on the t-shirt. So this would be the end of our tutorial. This is our official baggy t-shirt, and with our little knuckle tribe dude on there. But I hope you guys have learned something useful from this. I'm probably repeating what I already said, so I'm probably not even going to say all of that. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and stay tuned for some more tutorials. And feel free to show me some of your results as well. You can contact me on Facebook or via email or even on Instagram. That's Mr. Davids2 on Instagram. Alright, thank you guys and goodbye.